George Clooney has always been known for his clever humor and love of pranks. Friends say he can plan a joke for years and never let anyone see it coming. But the one thing that surprised everyone was when he didn't prank Brad Pitt. Their friendship had been one of Hollywood's strongest bonds, but in 2016, when Pitt went through his hardest time, Clooney proved he was more than just a jokester. He called Brad every week, visited when no one else did, and became a source of strength. For years, they were like brothers, until 9 years later, something broke between them. When George needed Brad, he wasn't there. What followed were whispers of tension, secrets, and an uncomfortable truth that Brad finally revealed about George and Amal's marriage in 2025, a truth that George had kept hidden for years. George Clooney was born on May 6, 1961, in Lexington, Kentucky. His mother, Nina, had once been a beauty queen but later became a city councilwoman. His father, Nick Clooney, was a well-known TV host and news anchor. Because of Nick's career, the family moved around a lot in Kentucky and Ohio, making it hard for George to feel settled. They finally found stability in Augusta, Kentucky, where they lived in an old Victorian home. Dinner time was filled with discussions about politics, current events, and fairness. George grew up surrounded by strong opinions and was taught to always stand up for what was right. The Clooneys were also a family connected to fame. George's aunt, Rosemary Clooney, had been a major star in the 1950s with hits like Come On to My House and the film White Christmas. But fame faded fast. When rock and roll took over, Rosemary's career collapsed, and she turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. When George moved to Hollywood years later, he stayed with her and even worked as her driver. Watching her rise and fall taught him something important: fame never lasts forever, and chasing it too hard can destroy you. As a teenager, George dreamed of being a baseball player. He played both basketball and baseball in high school and even got a tryout with the Cincinnati Reds. But during one practice, a curveball came at his head and passed by for a perfect strike. That moment shattered his dream. He realized that passion alone wasn't enough without the right skill. George grew up in a strict Catholic family and served as an altar boy. But as he got older, his faith began to fade. By his late 30s, he admitted he wasn't sure if he still believed in heaven or even in God. Life had changed him too much to see things the same way. When he was 15, something happened that could have ruined his confidence forever. One side of his face suddenly stopped moving. He had Bell's palsy. For months, he couldn't smile properly, and milk would drip from his mouth when he drank. His classmates laughed and called him names. Instead of breaking down, George fought back with humor. He started making jokes about himself before anyone else could. That was when he learned how to use comedy as protection, a skill that later became part of his charm as an actor. After high school, George struggled to find direction. He sold women's shoes, did construction work, and even sold insurance door to door. At one point, he was sleeping in a closet at a friend's apartment in Los Angeles. He had no car, no job, and no plan, but he refused to give up. That tiny closet, he would later say, was one of the best times of his life because it taught him grit. His first acting jobs were small and forgettable. He was an extra in the 1978 miniseries Centennial and got minor roles in failed shows like a short-lived sitcom called ER in 1984, not the famous medical drama he would later star in. Directors often saw him as just a pretty face, and it nearly ended his career. Then came Roseanne, where he played Booker Brooks, a charming supervisor. But after a prank involving a giant chocolate bar went wrong, he lost favor with the network. Despite the setbacks, George refused to quit. During his time on Sisters in the early 90s, he secretly used the studio cameras to teach himself directing. Then came 1994, The Real ER. His role as Dr. Doug Ross changed everything. The show became a massive hit, drawing more than 27 million viewers every week. Clooney's character, handsome, flawed, and compassionate, made him a star. The fame that followed was huge, but it came with exhaustion. While working on ER, Clooney also filmed From Dusk Till Dawn with Quentin Tarantino, balancing hospital drama by day and vampire chaos by night. He was working up to 18 hours a day. After 5 years, he left the art to focus on movies. Off-screen, George's pranks were as famous as his acting. He once filled a trailer with rubber snakes and sent fake acting tapes just to mess with friends. But behind all the jokes, he was serious about his craft. His transition to film paid off with hits like Ocean's 11 in 2001, where he met Brad Pitt. What began as rivalry turned into friendship, and a legendary prank war. Pitt once put up fake posters in Italy telling locals not to look George in the eye and to call him Mr. Ocean. Clooney spent years plotting revenge. As his acting career soared, George also began directing and producing. His directorial debut, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind in 2002, received solid reviews, even though he clashed with screenwriter Charlie Kaufman. Later, he fought the Writers Guild over credit for Leatherheads, choosing to leave full membership in protest. His reputation grew as someone who stood by his principles, even when it cost him. He continued acting in films like The Men Who Stare at Goats and Up in the Air. The latter earned him an Oscar nomination and critical praise. Meanwhile, his humanitarian work became a big part of his life. He co-founded Not on Our Watch, raising awareness about global violence, and even got arrested during a peaceful protest in Washington, D.C., alongside his father. George's personal life took a turn in 2013 when he met Amal Alamuddin, an international human rights lawyer. Their first meeting at his Lake Como villa left him amazed by her intelligence and compassion. They married in Venice the next year, surrounded by friends like Matt Damon and Cindy Crawford. In 2017, they welcomed twins, Alexander and Ella. Amal continued her global legal work, representing high-profile cases and teaching at Oxford and Columbia. But by early 2025, rumors began spreading about trouble in their marriage. Amal didn't attend George's Broadway debut, and tabloids claimed a $500 million divorce was looming. Yet, by June, the couple appeared together at the Tony Awards, smiling and holding hands. Amal later said in an interview that George had always supported her, especially when she became a mother. Then came the quiet rift between George and Brad. When Clooney's Broadway run ended in June 2025, Brad didn't attend or reach out. George was deeply hurt. They had been there for each other through everything, especially when Brad's marriage to Angelina Jolie fell apart in 2016, and now the silence felt like betrayal. Brad's team claimed he was overseas filming, but the damage was done. 2 weeks later, Brad was seen with Tom Cruise at a premiere in London, which fueled rumors of tension between the old friends. By July, Amal gave another interview saying that their family was strong and that George was still her biggest supporter. Her words hinted that no matter what others thought, they were still united. George Clooney's life has been filled with triumphs, mistakes, and lessons. From a kid who fought through Bell's palsy to a Hollywood icon who turned jokes into a shield, his story has always been about resilience. Whether it's standing up for justice, clashing with Hollywood's biggest names, or fighting for his family's privacy, he has always done things his own way. And through every scandal, friendship, or heartbreak, George Clooney remains one of the few stars who never let fame define him, only his choices did.